Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So we are here with the Squier Affinity Telecaster. This is the new series of Teles that Fender's recently come out with. They're dating as far as 2021, 2022 for the release of these new models, and they've definitely got some new appointments to them. We now have a glossy headstock, top surface only, satin finish so light that the neck feels naked, but oh so smooth. We do have a combination of modern and vintage tuners at the same time. So let me give you some close-ups here. So we have the split tuners, which are the vintage style, and they're a locking tuner. So you have to cut the string a little shorter, right, first, then jab it down the center, bend it over, tuner up, and locks your string in place. Though you're still going to need extra wraps on your high E and your B, and maybe an extra wrap on the G string, but E, A, and D, you shouldn't need anything more than 2 to 2.5 wraps, and you're good to rock and roll. Now on the back side, of course, we do have the modern portion of the tuners, which are sealed tuners. And of course, one string tree, really nicely done nut. Very impressed. Actually, I'm completely impressed with the whole guitar, but we're going to go over it all. Maple fretboard, maple neck on this thing. I love a maple on maple neck on a Tele. I wish Strats were that way too. Not that I'm against rosewood, but you know, the maple is nicer to me. Looks nicer anyways. Doesn't do anything for your sound or tone though, so you know, anyways. But nonetheless, we also have the skunk strip down the back, of course. We now have the insert and the truss rod, something you didn't see on Affinities before. Multi-layer pick guard. There's at least 3 layers on this pick guard, and that's a new thing. Of course, we do have some nice control knobs. I don't know if they've upgraded the control knobs, but they may have. These ones have the Allen key in them, and you know, to purchase them separately, they're anywhere between $16 to $22, depending on the style of Fender knobs. They have 2 different styles that I've seen anyways. 3-way switch, of course, on this. Straight out single coil configuration. You know, typical traditional Telecaster. We have a string through body, something nice and new, as well as a belly cut. Now the butterscotch blonde, on the other hand, as you notice, you really can't see any wood grain. It's very difficult to see the wood grain. So whatever stain they use to get the butterscotch or paint, well, they've gone a lot thicker. Now some people are okay with this, other people are a little disappointed. I'm kind of in between, but I don't hold it against the guitar for final marks. Okay? The fit and finish on this particular guitar is absolutely outstanding. Okay? Like, no rough edges anywhere on the frets. None of the frets buzz. Really super sick low action on this thing. Just incredible. I love a low action, but wow, this is low. The neck is not dead straight. It does have just a very minuscule amount of relief. So this is like the dream Tele for me, without spending massive amounts of money. The thing is just, everything about this, like, it was made right. Now, they do have 2 versions of this, in that one is made in China, one is made in Indonesia. You don't know which one you're getting till you take it out of the box. Although, I'm sure both are perfectly fine. I have an Indonesian limited edition Telecaster, that's a 2019 model. And it's Indonesian, and it's fine too. Yeah, this is made in China, and no big deal. I don't really care where it's made. To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter where a guitar is made as long as it's made correctly. The nuts and washers, normally on every guitar I've ever bought, I've always had to snug these up because they always tend to be a little bit loose, right, from the factory. Part of that's because of shipping, depending on where it's coming from, what country. Humidity changes, wood shrinks and expands, so ship it with slightly loosened off nuts and washers, and the new owner can snug them up, because we were going to be doing a setup anyways. This thing, I gotta tell you, I am thoroughly impressed. Now I guarantee you that box was definitely factory sealed. Nobody's been in that box other than the factory that put it in there and sealed it. And these nuts and washers were already snug, no problems. Setup, absolutely perfecto. Whoever built this guitar at the factory really had a brain in their head and did an outstanding job. It's like you would expect this kind of work on like a $3, $4, $5, $10,000 guitar. You don't expect that on $329. It's just not going to happen, right? Well, in this case it did. Now that's the sale price currently at Long McQuade in Canada. In any Long McQuade store, they got them, all right? And if they don't have one in stock, they will get you one, not a problem. This one was not in stock at our store, particularly, and I had them ordered in, and I wanted the box to be one that was a sealed box from the other store, so nobody at the other store has been in it. It wasn't hung up on the rack for a while, none of that stuff. I wanted to make sure it was 100% factory sealed so that I'm the only other person that's been at it other than the factory team, and of course, that's the way it worked out. Bonus. And whoever did this in China, thank you. You did a great job. Now, that does not go without consequence either. There are there's the cons to this. I had some issues with the switch, the three-way switch. When I was initially doing my unboxing and we did a little bit of a test run, I was trying to hear the difference between the middle position and the neck, and it was so minuscule of a difference, it's kind of like, why even bother? And what is going on here? So further testing later on revealed that in the neck position, the power was cut back on the bridge, but you still ended up with bridge and neck in the neck position. And it's like, that's not how a Tele's wired. No Tele is wired to do that. So, not from the factory anyways. But anyways, I took the control plate off and I found out, oh, do we ever have a really interesting rat's nest in here of extra connections that I've never seen before. I pulled my other Tele apart just to compare, and it's like, okay, well, the switches look to be about the same, but yeah, the wiring on the pots to the switch, everything just totally weird. And it's like, huh? Now, the other thing I did find out too is they had the positive leads from the pickups reversed. Even though we still got bridge in the bridge, which absolutely worked fine, on its own, so the neck pickup wasn't involved, it was still, the wires were reversed, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but I didn't figure that out until about 10 hours later that those wires were reversed. What I did find is they were also soldered to the wrong lugs on the switch. Now there's, was it 8 different connection points on the switch. It's one of those cheap $2 switches, literally, yes, from China. Switchcraft also makes the same style of switch for about 11 bucks, 10, 11 bucks. And except theirs has finer connections, smaller, more robust switch, stronger built. I mean, wonderful, right? Anyway, so I ended up buying one of those because after flipping the wires back around, when I figured that was the problem, and also the connection points. You're not supposed to use the 2 furthest outside lugs. You use the 2 in here and the 2 in the middle, and the 2 in the middle are for volume and treble to be able to adjust through the pickups with, right? And the other sets of 2 lugs on each are for obviously your 3 positions to work properly. And so get that straightened out, and the switch went and screwed up on me. And I'm like, oh, really? So I went out to Long McQuade, I got the Switchcraft switch for 11 bucks. I ordered an $18 real Fender switch because I prefer them anyways, but I had to order it because otherwise they had one in stock that was like 42 bucks, and I'm like, I don't need top of the line in an Affinity here, okay? I would spend that if it was like a Mexican or American Tele, but you know, $18 Fender switch, they never die anyways. They last 5,000 lifetimes. You'll never replace them. At least I never would anyways. But we got the Switchcraft one in here, which looks very similar, but it's definitely not the same quality grade. It is like 100 times better quality grade. And because I'm picky, I did replace my output jack as well, because the cheap Chinese one on there wasn't quite holding my wireless in tight enough, let alone a cable, so that I did change. I could have just taken it out and bent the tab, but why bother when I can just buy Switchcraft and never worry about it again. $4.10. I bought 2 of them, one for a spare for another guitar. So anyways, so that was my day. Now, the other nice appointment here too is they've moved away from plastic and gotten us into a metal plate. Like I said, they've really dressed this thing up. I'm like, I can't believe how nice this thing is. Like my Bullet Telecaster, my righty, I mean, it's really well built too, which is surprising for a Bullet being the bottom feeder of the Fender line of guitars. This is the second in line. Then we get into the Classic series. And then from there we get into the Players, which are Mexican guitars. And then we get USA, right? And so on and so forth. But I've had an Affinity Strat before. If you type in Affinity Strat, or sorry, Affinity Tele. Yeah, I've had the Strats too. What guitars haven't I owned yet? It's so hard to go in along with Quaint. It's like, what haven't I owned yet, or rented, or borrowed, or something, you know? Yeah, I've had the Affinity Tele before, the older version, which had a nicer butterscotch to it, right? We all liked that one. But the hardware wasn't as nice. I mean, the tuners were okay, but, you know, I mean, the pickups in these things seem to sound a lot better too, a little bit better output at the same time. So, quite happy with that as well. Some people thought that the way this thing is wired too is for a treble bleed. I can't see a treble bleed still allowing even a reduction in power, still allowing the pickup for the neck and the bridge to be on at the same time in the neck position. So that didn't make sense to me why they wired it the way they did, but I don't know. There is some wiring in here that I've never seen in a Tele. I even looked online too for different pictures of inside guts of different Teles, like Americans and Mexicans and the Chinese, Indonesian ones, and yeah, they all seem to be wired normal, except this one's a little weird, so they don't make mention about that on the specs. Anyways, so we're into the Vox DA15, we're on the clean channel. We got the volume at half, gain at half, master at half, bass mid treble, of course, halfway point, 12 o'clock. And we're going to play a little bit for you, and then we're going to give you the final verdict on this thing. I love the sound of a Tele. Okay, so middle position. Now, when you're listening to the neck position, you go back, that brightness comes back because the bridge is on. A little muffly, but a lot of guys don't like the neck, and that's fine. I mean, I mostly play on the bridge anyway for the most part, so whether it's a Tele or not, just because I like that sound, that bite. You got that, you know, Tele twang. They call it the quack. So let's throw a bit of a bluesy tone into this. gotta love a Tele. Alright, we all know we want some distortion, right? Alright, overall, I gotta tell you guys, this thing is pretty fantastic. The treble's got pretty good amount. Yeah, even the volume. Pretty much full sweep, hassle-free. Anyways. You get carried away playing this thing. So, I'm really no problem putting this thing at a real easy 4 1/4 out of 5. Now, everybody has to go by their own experiences, their own judgment calls on a guitar, and we have to count pros and cons, and there's just way so many pros to this thing. The only drawback to this guitar was the switch was, well, it wasn't wired right to begin with, but it was also a very cheap and became very obviously defective switch in a hurry. Because once putting the new switch in, which was like, you know, nothing much different, better quality obviously for the same style, that quality difference and that capability in lockups and doing things right, well, I'm sorry, the switch that came with this one actually was pretty sucky. So, one thing you can do to test your pickups out to know if you've got them wired right, especially in this case, being wired correctly, is a tap test. So take a non-magnetic screwdriver, Allen key, whatever, and just tap. So that's bridge. Next dead. Middle. We should have that. You hear a little tick tick out of there. Okay? Then we go to the neck. A little bit more tick tick because we got more output. So the output is actually slightly decreased on your neck when you're playing both. That's normal. There shouldn't be anything coming out of that bridge at all when you're in the neck position. At least then you know everything's correct. So, because that's the way they're supposed to be wired. But some people think there's a treble bleed circuit in this thing somewhere, and I don't. Maybe their idea of a treble bleed would be, yeah, it was the wires were backwards for where the pickups are supposed to be, even though location-wise, yeah, bridge was still bridge, but it was still not in the right spot. Not on the right lugs either on the switch, which was another issue. But they have some extra wiring and extra stuff going on with the capacitor across live and ground poles that I've never seen before, and I'm like, eh? So I've left all that alone. I did upgrade the quality of some wire in there because I didn't really have a choice. But otherwise I did not change anything as far as positions of wires or any of that stuff. You know, so that has not been altered whatsoever. This is how I also troubleshot what's going on with this guitar, because we have some issues here because neck should be neck only and that's it. bridge only, and the pair of them together should be the pair of them together. And yeah, so we found out some things. So anyways, but that's, you know, and the fact that I had to replace the switch right away, that's stupid. Shouldn't have to. Even on a cheap switch, it should at least last a month or two, you know what I mean? But not even a full day, that's a problem. So yeah, but the new switch is working out perfectly fine. I took my choice to upgrade the jack to also a switchcraft as well, because the jack that comes with these things, although it does work, and you could always just push in on the tab, take it apart, push in on the tab to give it more positive lockout. You're better off just buying a switchcraft switch for $4.10 while you're in there. Desolder 2 wires, solder them onto the new one. But you will have to do some modifications, by the way, for using a higher quality jack. And that's drilling out the plate to the proper size. I had to go, I think it was about three drill bit sizes up from what it should be, well, from what it originally was. So from what it was to the full size that I had to go to get it to work right, I had to go, I think it was 3 sizes up. For mounting the switchcraft switch, it's got larger screws. Diameter, you cannot use your older screws because they'd be too thin in diameter for the threads. These were drilled 1 size over. So what you do is you take the back end of a drill bit, find the size that absolutely perfectly fits, hassle-free, through the hole. Okay? I mean perfectly fit. Then you go 1 size up from that for the switch plate. And for this one, you find the perfect size, and then you go the next size up, you try it again, you go the next size up, you try it again, till you get to the exact right size that you need. Okay, so, because cheap Chinese switches and jacks, especially the jacks, the diameters are always smaller. I got a drawer full of the suckers, and it's like, well, they'll fit in, you know, already, you know, more opened holes, but they just kind of don't fit right. You know what I mean? So there's a reason why they make more robust, higher quality, thicker walled jacks for a reason. Okay? You get the idea? Anyway, so you're going to have to do a couple little mods if you decide to do some upgrades to this. But I would definitely recommend, if anything, go to the Switchcraft jack of the same style. It's still going to last you for years. A Switchcraft is really good stuff. Or you can opt out for the $18 Fender switch and never have to worry about a switch ever again, like forever. Okay? And the jack is definitely a must-do upgrade to this. Other than that, I am going to be putting a roller bearing string tree on this when I go to change the strings. These brand new factory strings are literally perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not even stretched in yet. This thing was detuned from the factory by about four steps at least. It was pretty sloppy, and I'm like, oh, good idea for shipping. You know, but the strings are perfect on it, so I'm going to play them until they die. And when they do, then I'll change the string tree. Because I ordered a pile of string trees in for my other Tele and my 2 Strats, and I'm changing them all over to roller bearing because they're so much better. Especially on a Strat if you want to stay in tune better when you're using the whammy bar. So, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, hanging out, listening to my review and my bit of a demo on this. I'm sure you'll hear this guitar on many more videos to come. It has become one of my new favorites. I might be ignoring my Gibsons for a while, but I would play live with this. In fact, I'm going to be playing live with this thing. I can't believe how nice it is. That low action, everything. Sound. These pickups are way better than the older Affinities, that's for sure. See ya.